Howdy. All right, so I changed up a few things. Hopefully, nothing goes super duper crazy. So I'm going to give it just a few minutes and just make sure everything audio wise is working good and everything. I did a few adjustments to my stream since Saturday, and I think it's gonna work a little better today. Maybe. Let me know. Let me know if it looks any worse or better or gooder or whatever. So I was messing with some stuff last night, and one of the things I did was basically my computer is trying to run. It was trying to run three programs at the same time. It was trying to run Cubase, and then I had Chrome open running the dashboard for YouTube, and then I had OBS summing everything together and putting it on YouTube. So my computer was trying to transcode like all these different things going on. And so what I did was I made a custom dock in OBS that is the YouTube dashboard. So I don't have Chrome open at all right now. And I can still see the chat, and I can still see like the preview for the live stream to make sure everything's working. Let me unmute real quick to check. Wow, that is so cool. It makes me so happy. But yeah, so today I didn't stream yesterday because I was just tired. I was tired and needed a rest, and also some time to kind of think through what I wanted to do. What I think I'm going to do for the next couple streams is just kind of get in a rhythm of streaming and getting kind of used to times and getting used to just kind of this process. I love it. This is so much fun. It makes me so excited. So I think I'm going to just kind of walk through the three big songs that I have out on Spotify right now, which are When We All Get to Heaven, In the Sweet By and By, and Blessed Assurance. And I think I might have done a couple walkthroughs or some overviews on Facebook Live, maybe even a year ago, or more. And that was just in a really janky setup. I think this is a lot better of a setup. So my hope is that this will kind of be a better place to, archive these things. And then I think once I get into groove and once people kind of, I don't know if notifications are working. I don't know if YouTube's, throwing this out there. I'll have to double check here. Seahawks went live for something. Did it get a notification? Okay, so I got an email notification. So one of the things I'll request is if you are watching this video, either live or later on, comment how you got notified. Whether I sent something out on, Instagram and it connected to my Facebook. Instagram seems to be kind of the sweet spot that I can throw stuff to, and it makes it work. And hopefully the chat's working. Let me double check with my live to make sure it's doing its thing. Yeah, that should be fine. I just want to make sure that the chat's working inside of the OBS widget. Hopefully it is. Yeah. So that's my plan, is just to kind of walk through some of these projects that I'm familiar with, so that way I can move kind of with a cadence and work through just some of this stuff that I've got kind of archived. And then I think I'll transition to more like, Q&A-esque things, or beat making, just kind of hangouts and stuff. So for starters, just so that I'm kind of rolling through it, that's kind of my game plan for this for now. And then if you guys have any suggestions, or if you want to see any projects later on, I do plan on going through all the multi-tracks of our last album. So the Bird Songs, the Journey Act 2, the War. We were able to get all of the mix multi-tracks. So I have all the raw drums, guitars, vocals, everything as though we had just recorded them in the studio. And I plan to go through, and instead of doing a walkthrough of something that I've already mixed, I'm going to walk through and actually just remix or just process through some of the tracks that we had already done. Gosh, we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of that album. And I think the 1-year anniversary of this thing. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, without further ado, I think I'm going to jump into it. And yeah, just let me know if everything's working, if anything goes haywire. So here's the song. And I think because I adjusted a few things, everything's running a little bit better. Let me see if OBS, and I just don't have Chrome up. So I think that's one of the things is there's a lot of energy, but I don't think it's nearly as impactful as when I had all the other ones up. Maybe not. Maybe it just is tricking my brain. Yeah. Let's see here. I'll give it just a moment. I don't know why that song stuck in my head. Whoa, whoa. Maybe I should do a little bit more of a heads up. Next time I'll do probably like an hour update, like premiere thing or whatever. That way people kind of know a little further in advance what's going on. Cool. All right, so I'm just going to play it through, and then we'll start from the bottom and work our way down. Here we go. Hopefully it works. Wahoo! Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how excited I was whenever I got all this stuff going. And that's just fun. that's like, I don't know. It's a weird, like, I mentioned in the last stream the Bob Ross thing of like him, creating something and then, I don't know, showing other people. But one of the cool elements too is like usually they'll show you the painting in its full like doneness before he actually starts with a blank canvas. And I don't know, it's just sometimes it just feels like when he just takes that line and he just goes bloop over a painting, you're just like, he just ruined it. And then just a couple seconds later he's got a forest of these beautiful looking trees. That's what it feels like creating music for me, because like I'm looking at a blank canvas, but I can see where trees go, where the clouds go, how bright or dark, the sky's going to look, and just like all these different things. And then it's just at that moment you step back and it's like, boom. And I think that's just so cool. And that applies to more than just music, obviously. But, oh my goodness, it's just so much fun. So we'll start from square one. On this track, what did I use? SSD5. I do have it frozen because I used a lot of drumming, sampling, and dynamics and whatnot. So I bet if I pop this out, it would freak out. But it's SSD. I think I could probably just open up. Add an instrument. This is SSD5 sampler. Just to see what happens. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. It's a pretty simple setup, and then I just go into kits and let's say designer. And I think I don't remember which one I used, but I just set this up and then I can play stuff. Probably not. I don't know why it's not. Oh. No, it should be. Should be routed. Unless it's not. Unless it's not. That's kick. Oh, I know why. Sorry. I have this in the mixer tab. I actually have it routed out to all these different outputs. So that's why. But anywho, that's what it looks like. But it ends up in the end looking like this in my project. So drums is just, there's really nothing that comes through that. That's just like, I don't know, it's like the bass, like stereo left and right maybe. But I don't send anything out to that because I send everything out in its own specific element, toms and all that. And then I have a bigger project that has even more outputs because there's more stuff in, I think 5.5, SSD 5.5 has more stuff. And so I'll get to that probably later on. But anywho, this is all the drum stuff. I really liked our bass, so I threw it on everything. And this is definitely before I started, I was grouping stuff, but then, I don't know, I guess I kept trying to just do more and more stuff to it, to the elements. So that's a process. Hey Breck, and hey Caitlin, Katie. It is good to see ya. Y'all are too kind. But yeah, so basically I take like kick and snare, or I take, all the kicks. So there's like a kick in, kick out, kick sample, trigger, and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll just group that into one, which makes it easier to mix. So I can just ride the fader if I want to make it louder or quieter or whatever. But also it helps for processing. So I think on the groups, I just did some minor kind of adjustments. So I can add like top end or low end to different elements. And then I can do sort of like bigger, broader EQ move to those instruments. So like I can make the snare bright and turn up the high end on all the snares. And then once it gets to the group, I can add one extra EQ and just barely bump it up. And it just does something else. It's weird. It's better than just taking the EQ and cranking it on every single channel to get it bright. So it's kind of like little changes, 101% changes is 100% change. I heard that somewhere. I thought that's pretty cool. So that's what I did with the drums. And let's see if I can get to the bottom of these. I was also doing some really dumb routing as well. So let me see if they showed up. Let's see if they showed up somewhere here. Where did I have them? Okay, yeah, so I have an all drums. And I think the reason I had all drums is one of the things I started doing is adding just like raw drum elements. The shells, kick, snare, cymbals, all that kind of stuff to a drum bus and compress it. And then have my parallel drums and samples and maybe other like sonically just different sounding things like reverbs and whatnot. And I would send those along with, so they wouldn't be processed in the drum bus, they would be processed in the all drum bus, but the all drum bus wouldn't have as much processing on it. I probably over processed a lot of stuff in this though. But that way I can like slam the drum kit as a unit, and then the reverb wouldn't get exploded by the compression on that kit. So I just have this really nice sounding drum thing, and if I need more reverb, I'll just bump the reverb up, and it's not affected by that group. So that's what I was doing. So I stopped doing that because I would just, all the groups were kind of being processed in their own right, and then I would just have a final drum bus that everything went to that was more of like a limiter and just kind of would like be more character and stuff. I'd add like saturation or parallel distortion or that kind of thing to it. So I've streamlined that process a little bit. So these are what the drums sound like in their own little world. Those claps. Where are the claps? Oh, they're there. Claps. So yeah, they did a good job with sampling out stuff, getting good dynamics. 5.5, they went back and I think they remastered some of the older samples, and gave even more dynamics and more kind of flexibility in that update. But I did not have that back when I had this, when I was making this project. So I kind of have everything split out. Got my kick group. And then I think if I do the trigger, I think it'll just play everything. Without the trigger. So one of the things I was using trigger for in this was adding room. The one thing I don't like about SSD right now is, oh yeah, man, I love drums. I love mixing drums. I don't know. It's something fun. You just get tons and tons of energy with like compression and distortion and all this kind of crazy stuff. It's really, really fun. But yeah, so with SSD 5, I don't like their kick out mic. They have this little kick out deal, and it just doesn't sound. It's just kind of this oofy. Like I don't even know if I have it turned down so much, just because it's just nothing but. It may not even be working. I don't even know. It's just, I don't know, it's just weird. It's this little oof sound. It just sounds weird. So there's no, in the sampling of SSD5, there's no like real good kind of roomy thump. there's some of these room mics, and you can kind of tell what I'm talking about if I did, like, say, these room mics. You hear that kind of explosion of the kick, like on the walls, that reverberated kind of boof sound. Yeah, on the kicks themselves, I don't have like a mic that does that. So what I've been doing is adding a kick trigger that triggers that sound. Let me see. Hopefully it doesn't crash. But this would be, oh man, my Blackbird sample went away. I think it's because I moved some samples. But basically, that sound. I know it's probably really quiet. But it was kind of meant to be. I mean, I'm mixing it like a room mic. So that way it added this sort of depth to the kick. Kind of spread it out a little bit. It's probably out of phase, and I don't know where that other kick drum went. I think I need to adjust a few things there. But yeah, that's kick. Snare group. Same thing. I think I was just adding... I don't know where those samples are. Oh yeah, I think it's because I moved some of them to where I think there's a new trigger. Unless this isn't. No, this is all of them. Oh, but I haven't added it. So what's cool about trigger, side note, you can add your own library locations, and if you have any samples in those locations, they'll pop up in the browser. And I just hadn't done that yet in this project. It's not a huge difference maker, but with this, I was just adding, again, a little bit of room, and I was adding some kind of bottom end, a lower resonant thumper of a sorry, I got a phone thingy. Yeah, the thump on the low end of a particular sample of a snare drum, and then just adding that in, making sure the phase is good. And that just adds, even though it's like the characteristic sort of blend, you get this really nice full spectrum sounding snare. So that's kind of what I was doing with the samples on this one as well. Our bass is really fun. I could even turn that up a little bit. I probably had, with the other samples that are missing, it was pushing it more. But this sort of boosts, and it does some sort of like a saturation and a synthesis of the frequency that you pick. And what that does is just beefs it up. So for instance, if you listen on headphones, you'll just feel that boom kind of pop in. Without it. And I will say for this song, I'll leave that bumped up a little bit. I went through maybe anywhere between 10 to 20 mix renditions. So like this is mix 3.0. I had multiple edits on the original that I made, 2.0 that I made, and then 3. So I had a ton and a ton of just all these different mix iterations. So this mix iteration probably just had less low end on the snare to make it the top end kind of pop a little bit. Yeah, I found SSD. Oh man, it was a while back. See, a lot of what I was doing was Benjamin. Benjamin bought Cubase 5, I think, back when we were doing like Celestial Stationary, and we were making kind of our own home tracks and stuff. We needed something to record. We were using a couple other DAWs, but Cubase sort of popped up on our radar, and we got it. We got Auto-Tune like shortly after, and all we could do was go around and try to make Owl City covers, or I think there's a band called Hello Goodbye, and their lead singer on some of their older stuff had that auto tune sound on his vocals. And so we just constantly used it. And so that's why, like, even some of my really old mixes were heavily auto tuned, just because I really liked that sound. But then we got Trigger, and Trigger helped because a lot of our home recordings, the drums were just they weren't good. And even now, depending on where I'm recording, it's hard to get that kind of studio, just well treated room, the drum tone. And so a lot of times I'll just try to get as good as I can get with the mics placements and EQ and just adjustments within the capturing of a drum kit. And then if there's anything missing, adding that sample to, like, for instance, I don't use a room mic for kick. Usually there's a kick in, kick out, and that's kind of what everyone normally does. But I just do a kick in and I trigger a kick out, just like I'm doing here. And that really helps. But yeah, drum replacement is really fun. I'll show you probably later on a project that that I actually recorded my drum kit in a studio environment for a band called Audiophile, and they came up from Alabama and recorded with me, and they used my drum kit, and it was really fun. It was hard to wrangle the room that we were in, but I used some tricks with that helped Trigger work really well. They're called key spikes. You can go Google it. Key spikes. There's some videos out there, but basically you just walk through the audio. Like MIDI is like a quick version of that. So like every single one of these hits, it corresponds with a sound. So every snare hit is that MIDI is triggering it. So what I did was, Cubase has a way of going and looking at audio waves, and you can slice audio on transients, and it'll scan it too. So you can scan the audio and it'll look for all the transients and make a little marker on it. Then once you got all of them marked, all the transients, so say I went through all the snares, every single time that snare is hit, even if it's the smallest little hit on that snare track, I go through and I cut it and I make a mark. Cubase has a way of making that audio hit markers, into MIDI. And so it comes out like, say it's like C1 or C2, all of them MIDI, and then you just make them 100%. Then you take that MIDI and you turn it into audio. So you make just this little blip, that looks, something like that or like that. And it is 100% exactly on every transient of the snare. And it's just a blip. I was using like a wood block. Then, so it keeps going and going and going. Then I took that audio sound and made it the trigger for a gate. And then what the gate did is, no matter when, it wasn't tracking off of the actual snare sound, because, if I hit the toms really hard, that could trigger the gate to open up, even in the snare mic. But I made the gate sidechain to that hit markers audio track, and it will only open up the gate and let the snare be heard exactly only when the snare's actually being hit, because it's being triggered by that key spike. And then what's cool about that is I can actually print it. That's a thing. And then I'll use that as my means to trigger. So I'm able to get a really consistent, clean dynamic, because it's still the audio of the snare. So if there's buzz rolls, if there's all these little ghost notes, all of those get picked up, but it's only being heard when the key spike is triggered, and that's already pre-programmed. So it's like an automated gate. And it'll do the same thing with trigger, and trigger is dynamic. So like when I go up to snares, for instance, let's go back to the snare trigger. You'll see the different waveforms. So see, like there's a blah, 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 blah. Like those are all, the way I program the drums is to be dynamic. So this is doing it too. It's kind of in the sensitivity and detail. So if I do these little ta 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 ta, like it'll do that. It sounds really cool. The processing for the most part was, I did way too much, I'm sure. I can't really jump into these because I have them frozen, which if I unfroze them, I think it would still work. But I would risk the project blowing up on me. Unless I have an, I don't remember if I was using this computer or not. Let's risk it. Let's see what happens. Oh boy. Oh boy, slow down. Slow down. All right, let's play the breakdown. Okay, yeah, there we go. So I got NLS on every channel. I was using the transient shaper built in, and all I was doing was giving a little boost on that front little snappy sound at the front end of a kick. It makes it sound like it's being hit harder. And that was one big thing too about SSD is they sample everything to get like a tonal quality, but you still have to kind of, I don't know, you have to kind of manipulate it to make it sound like an actual drummer is hitting a drum kit in a room. So the transient shaper actually really helps that. I got a better one than that one too. Again, just a little bit of boost, a little bit of a cut here at 1.5, which probably wasn't a good idea, but part of it was probably the kit I picked. And way too much boost there. Because again, I would boost little by little on each element, and then on the group, I could add even more, which probably is what I did. Yeah. So that's my kick. After that, some 1176. And then our bass. And even just having it on and you set it to a frequency, it will affect the subtonality of whatever you put it on. So even if you don't crank it up, just putting it on there and getting something, it does something. I don't know, it's just kind of crazy, and I really like it. I got to send out a little bit to. Okay, yeah, I'll get to this later when I get to bass, but I have a side chain to the bass, which is allowing the kick to override the bass in like either a frequency or either in a EQ or in a compressor to allow the kicks to remain consistent, which is also another trick for kind of like pop punk stuff. Kick out, I think I was just doing a lot of like high cut stuff or nothing. Mainly a lot of low mids, just because the sample for kick out is just really oofy. Oof, oof. And it just sounds weird. I don't like it. Hey, if you're just showing up, we're doing a walkthrough of When We All Get to Heaven. Thank you all so much for stopping by. This is really fun. I'm enjoying this. Snare top. Let's see here. Same thing. NLS. Was I boosting any of these? No, I kept these pretty flat because I have in my master chain, my master bus down here, I have an NLS which acts like the center piece of a console. And so you have your individual channels on a console, on a board, and then all of those get summed to your main left and right, your stereo output. That's what this element kind of looks like, is what it's modeling. And I have all of those individual channels, those modules, into this right here, this one. So if I turn this up or down, my drums will be turned up or down. And this is the drive function. And this is what kind of saturates and kind of dirties up like the ultra clean samples and stuff. Gives them a little bit of irregularity Irregularity. That's a really hard word to say. Um, and let's make sure. Yeah, because this is gonna die again. But anywho, I have that running on all of these, so I can kind of boost them all at once, and it sends a little bit more signal, and it kind of just hits a little harder. Same thing with the bottom snare. A little oofy and tons of lows to get that kind of nice and round sounding thing. Snare. Nice snare. And then they have a ring sample. I wonder if they like went in and kind of manipulated some stuff. I don't use it because a lot of these samples already have a nice kind of decay to them. I don't remember what. I think I use a 12 and a 16. Yeah. So they have a 10, 12, 14, 16, depending on the kit that you pick. I personally have a 12 and a 16 on my drum kit. So this was like the closest to what my kit would sound like. And with these, I don't think I did too much. Again, just some of that envelope shaping. A lot of this was cutting the release because, again, I wanted the toms to kind of get out of the way quick. I even got them gated. So that way, the decay would just be like, doo, doo. I just wanted that. Because there's a lot of fast elements in the song, especially like going into the second verse. And you can even hear on the floor tom, it's like, go, it just kind of does that. I'd probably, in the future, edit that more by going in, and if I had a fast fill, I would just turn on or turn off a gate or a transient shaper in those moments, because then again, there's some spots where it's just, I want that decay, that doo, and then I didn't automate it, like right here. It's kind of there. The bass is doing a little lick with it, so that way it sort of accentuates that doo. But it's pretty quick if you just solo up the drums. Like, so I would have probably automated those to turn off, so they would just doo, and then turn them back on. It's one big thing I'm learning about production is automation. It's its own little world. And it's really fun to dig into that kind of stuff, just for that type of reasoning, to be able to go in and manipulate stuff dynamically throughout a song instead of just turning it on and leaving it there. So yeah, that's what I did with toms. It's got a hi-hat and ride, overheads. Let's see what those sound like. This is before I got Soothe, so I probably just had a de-esser. Kind of cleaning up that snappy sound. Yeah, so NLS again. I think, yeah. No, I just left it alone. No, I did. I boosted him here. Boosted it. Because there's just not a lot of signal coming in from the plugin. So I boosted it there. Does this have a frequency? This was before I think I had all the frequency analyzing stuff, which really helps. Yeah, because you're not really supposed to mix with your eyes, but it really does help to find frequencies quicker. And also trains like where to look. I don't know, that's weird. For bad frequencies, I can find them a little quicker now. Just I'm training my ear to be able to hear that. I didn't do any boosting. I just cut a lot of the fluff out of the overheads. Probably could have cut them a little higher. The higher you cut your overheads, the more the shells kind of get separation from the cymbals. tonally, but I left it lower because I just still wanted some room. I wanted some kind of organic sound. Just cutting some low mids. Just kind of that high mid, just fluff, oofy sounds. Little compression, just enough to get it to stay consistent, and then that way I can kind of control it a little bit better in the mix. And then some tape. Definitely could have hit this harder. That one's a fun one. Room A. So they have 2 rooms in SSD5. Some of them they do weird mixing within the plugin, depending on what's sent to it. So room A is usually pretty consistent, kind of as a mid room. So I was doing a boost cut type thing here because I wanted some brightness from the room, but if you make the room slightly darker, they blend back a little bit in the mix for drums, and they kind of sit back, and then they add some weight and some warmth and depth to the kit without it being super shrilly, because all those cymbals are just splashing. The more and more those frequencies stack up, the harsher they get. So in this, I was able to kind of set it up to not be so sharp. Usually I would do a slight cut, and then I would put soothe, and soothe is a dynamic EQ, which I can show right here. And I would put this probably on the fastest attack, on hard, and then you can kind of see what it would cut is this. The sound, that's just terrible sound. And the main thing is it mellows out when you put it in, but I always forget that like other things are adding brightness to the kit. The overheads themselves, the shells, those type of elements are already bright in their own right. So the room mics are mainly just to add width and depth to a drum kit. So that's one trick that's fun to mess with. I'll take it off for now because soothe does kind of eat up a bit of my resources, and I don't like that. Let's see here. And then this is a room B. And this is just, I smashed the living daylights out of it. And this is more just character. And I did ride the volume of it, I think, for certain parts. But this was me just trying to get some just explosive grit. I think more I would not destroy the room like that, and I would do a parallel distortion, maybe, and that would leave it to where I'd still have that depth. Because it's further away. I think these mics, it's like kind of close and far room. So I wouldn't want to just completely destroy the rooms all the time. But I did. Sorry, rooms. And I'm learning where some of that sound, like from a good drum kit, where that's coming from. Mainly watching streams where they actually solo out those things. It really helps. So that's what the room sounds like. And then this thing, I genuinely don't know why it's called SLR, but it sounds like this. It's the snare wires. And what's surreal is when I turn it off, like how weird the drums sound. Because a drum kit has sympathetic, like reverberation. It's got those elements that, there's a lot of energy on a drum kit, and so things are going to buzz, things are going to vibrate each other. So when I hit the snare, the first tom's going to vibrate and cause a tone. When I hit the kick, it's going to vibrate and cause the snares to rattle. And so that's what that sound. It's all like snare wires and stuff. It just adds a really cool dynamic. So I got a verb. What do I have? This is our verb. Oh, put it over here. Whoop. And I'm just doing a 1 second ditty. Just, again, adding some width, adding some depth with reverb. And then I did a trick where I put so on the group of the kicks, I just added some more some saturation, and this does some tonal shift, and so I like putting it on the group so that way it doesn't mess with phase later on, which it probably does in some cases. One thing that's really important and I like about using tape on samples is samples are usually really clean and they're really spiky. And so adding some sort of saturation on the transients, giving it a little bit of a rounder sound instead of it being so clear and crisp and perfect. Tape saturation really does a good job of unperfecting samples to get them to sound more organic, I guess you could say. So I got that going. I got that going into a pull tech, and I'm just adding a little bit of top end and a little bit of 100, which is like just sitting under the body of the snare. And it just kind of adds this a little extra weight. And it's subtle because I've already done some adjustments on the individual elements and in the group. So when it comes down to it, I don't have to do as much. But then I added both the kick and snare to this group, and I think this is where this is where my OCD starts to kick in. And I just put a little compression on the kick and snare to keep them consistent throughout a mix. So that way not one or the other is getting too loud over each other. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus. And it's barely doing anything. It's more or less in those really heavy moments, the drums don't just poke out and do something weird. And I like that. This is another dynamic. It's like a de-esser, but EQ type thing. Dynamic EQ. I think it's just a compressor. I always get confused. It's not a dynamic EQ, but it is compressing. It's compressing frequencies. I'll show you. So it's compressing those frequencies. And just adds this kind of scooped sound to the kick and snare and gives it a little bit of a pop sound. And then this, same thing, but I'm just doing higher frequencies. And I think what I was looking at for there is, again, with samples, they're very thwacky in like a bad way, because like you can get this really nice smack out of a drum kit, but then it just sounds weird for samples and like E drums and stuff. It just has this really kind of artificial top end. So I try to smooth that out as much as possible. And usually I'll use Soothe for that. So Soothe is really good because it'll just go in and those frequencies, that kind of, I don't know, it's just like a really weird fuzzy sound on the top end. It gets that under control. Then I can crank the top end and it has this nice bright sound without it sounding so artificial. Yep, that's all I was doing with kick and snare. That's also getting routed probably to drums, or I had them all set up here and I just called the drum mix all drums because I don't see anything else down here. That's probably what it was. So toms, I was using way too much stuff because toms were hard to wrangle as well. Just adding some top and bottom, some compression, probably too much. Not too bad. I probably could have made these release a little faster. Let's see. Yeah, something like that. I like doing this because this is a tilt EQ for the detector in the 2500. And so it'll basically be boosting the frequencies that the compressor hears in the top end, and then it dips them in the lower end, which means the low floor tom isn't going to cause the compressor to react as much. And the top tom, like the attack of the toms, get a bit more accentuated in the compressor circuit. So that way it kind of detects more of the transient element of the drum and not just the low end, because low end frequencies are so much bigger and they take up more room on the frequency spectrum, and compressors, they just go nuts if you put a bunch of low end through a compressor. Same thing again, almost exact same spot, just taking out that. I kind of, I'm not really sure. It's just a weird clicky sound. And then I got Kramer tape. I think I just bought this plugin and I put it on everything. But yeah, same thing. It's whenever it gets up into the red, it really saturates and kind of like a clipper. Because tape is, again, when you're recording a tape, it's only so big. It can only take so much. So if you go above the threshold of what tape can handle, it cuts it off. It clips. It's saturating off. And it sounds pretty good. Let me do a little audio check. Cool. Everything sounding good. Everything still working. I hope it is. Everything seems to be working on my end. It's just my poor little laptop doesn't have enough power to run all of this. It's kind of sad. And then a little trick is, I don't know why I was using this plugin. It's an L1 maximizer, but I don't know what I was doing. Probably didn't need to even use this. I use an L1 just standard, and it works just fine. And this is, again, just taming transients on the toms. Just those inconsistencies allows the tone to the volume to stay consistent, even if the tone fluctuates. That's nice. Tom verb, I think I was using an IR. Just a little bit of room. I have a new plugin that does emulate room really well that I have in my newer template, which is really fun to use. This is probably all crazy, but this is my drum parallel compression. And it looks like this. Yeah. So I'm doing a little bit of a boost at the top end, and parallel, it's again, as it is so aptly named, it is parallel to the drums. So all I'm throwing into this is the shells, the kick, snare, and toms. And I'm exaggerating compression, I'm exaggerating transients and EQ, and just kind of making it sound over the top. And then I push that into a normal mix, and what ends up happening is all of that kind of over the topness helps elevate what you already have kind of mixed drum wise. And it just sort of adds this extra thing, this extra sound, punch, heaviness to a drum kit. So let me play that and move this over here so I can still see what I've got going on over here. Yeah, I do have it soloed. All right, so this is what just the parallel sounds like. Just all of that, just extra noise and saturation and just blech. But what's cool is all of that mixed in just does something. So this is all the drums. The kick comes alive. The snare has this kind of shiny top end that just sort of comes out of nowhere. The toms have a little bit more depth to them. All of that is just feathered in. It's probably not much. It sounds like a lot, but it's barely doing anything. Yeah. And so that all combined goes down to the drum bus. And I've got a little bit of EQ and a little bit of compression and limiting. Bloop. 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 So yeah. That's too much compression. But I can change it here. It's something I'm still experimenting with because if I use the mid, it doesn't compress the kick as much, which will sometimes cause the kick to be too loud later on. So I'm still experimenting with that. Usually if it's excessive, like if the kick is really out compressing the snare, then I'll put it at mid. And what that does is it just, again, all that extra processing I did on the kick doesn't overflow into all of this stuff. I'll leave it alone. Again, very light bump at the low end, little bump, 12K, and then limiting. This was before I got my clipper, so I probably would have put the clipper at the bottom, and that way the standard clip is really good for drums and transients and stuff like that. And you can use it on other things as well, but it's just really good to really control crazy transients and whatnot. But some of that is being controlled a little bit by the tape and stuff earlier. So that's all the drums. We'll close. Yeah, we'll close that and we'll move on to guitars. Let's go back to the beginning and listen to guitars real quick. These are just rhythms. So the downside to having the pro and con of having this project for so long is when I originally tracked the guitars, I just had a single left and right guitar patch. And I recorded in the tone. That's not a lot of distortion. But I don't remember what I used. I don't know if it was Benjamin's Pod or if I had maybe something extra from UAD or what. I don't know what it was, but all I know is when I started to mix it, it was not enough oomph to really cut through the mix the way I wanted it to. So I did a secondary pass with Helix to get it to just sound more aggressive, which is what these sound like. But combined, you still get that tone of what I originally recorded and some aggression without all that distortion. But then the distortion is almost acting as parallel, but it's still a quad guitar mix or whatever. But it just adds more guts to it. So that kind of mid-range sound is coming from the original hits, from the original guitar parts. And then these are just adding more grit. This is something. So that and this, so that's panned a little over. Probably should have double tracked these. So with that, kind of split back and forth. I think I have an all guitar. There's an all guitar somewhere down here. I'm working on where I put these because the way that you set up a track or the way you set up your project really helps with workflow. And this is not a good way to do it. But this is all of them together. Really fun. Again, I don't know what I was using for these. I'll unfreeze this one just to show you because I duplicated it, so it's the same thing. But I was using Helix. What was I using? I was using I don't know. Hold on. Okay, so the Brit 2204, I believe, is a Marshall like JCM something or another. So I was running that tone through some Cali V30s, a 412 with a 57 on it. And that alone sounds like this. No, it doesn't. It sounds like this. Running a Tube Screamer emulation in front of the stack, and then just a kind of cleaning up some of this mid-range stuff. I probably would have gone for a more beefier tone to mix in without it being so scratchy, but at this point, whenever I was mixing and laying the stuff down, I just wanted more aggression, so I'm pretty sure I just left it kind of where it ended up. A little boost at round 2K, but I've spread out the Q, so it's picking up more frequencies on either side. The tighter the Q, the more it'll focus in on where you've got your EQ point. But as you open up the Q, it gets wider. So it's at 2K, but it's picking up probably close to like 1.4 as well, up to maybe like even 2.8 or 3. So it's just kind of this nice little bump in that area. And then cutting just some super highs, nothing too crazy. And a bit of compression. And these are identical. I would have just copied the settings over. But I freeze it because Helix, again, in real time, takes up processing. This will take a second. Yeah, as that's going, I'm gonna take a second, grab some water. Hopefully everything's still working, still going good over there. My computer, it's weird. I think I'm pulling more battery power. Like it's running more efficient, but I don't know why it's pushing down so hard on this thing. Cause everything's running pretty hot and it's still cooking. It's probably because I have a lot more processing and maybe OBS, and it just doesn't like OBS. But anywho, let's jump back into it. We'll try to. Hold on. We'll try. Hey, there we go. So, so I freeze those to keep them consistent. Let's see. Did I redo those with Helix as well? Nope. So the only new guitars that I put in, the only new guitars I put in were these, and they were just throughout the song. They're just to beef up the main guitars. Let's see. Got some cleans going into the verses, and I believe I did a left and right. Let's see if they sound different. I did do a left and right unique. So this is just a rhythm. So one thing I'll show you real quick. I think I recorded it with this guitar and I had it in drop C. So this is not in drop C. But what I did was I had it tuned, I think, to drop C or C flat. I think it was C. I may not have played on this guitar, I don't remember. But what I did was I was playing it like this on the second fret, so you get that that sound. But what's cool is because it's in E, but I'm playing it basically in E, but with it drop D, I can play open chords. So I can play open chords. So one of the cool things with it being in that key is I can just play opens. I liked that a lot. And there's some cool kind of ringy stuff you can do. That's called demo-itis, which is where you play it once and then you don't think you can replicate what you played and you just leave it alone. Because I totally would have not kept that little part in there. But it adds a little character. Yeah, so I really like those. I think on this one, I was automating this reverb. I don't know why it's off. Not really sure why that was doing that. Interesting. I'm going to go back up here real quick, actually, and freeze the drums again. Just because it makes me feel better. How's everybody doing? This is fun. We're working our way. Da, 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 da. All right, so that's a good little boost of processor there. I like it. I did add these at the beginning, and these were their own thing. This is what I would have done earlier. Yeah, y'all. And then in the second verse, so I was doing that. I was literally holding the guitar up to the speaker to get it to feedback. But what's cool is those are kind of underneath the drums. So if I play those with the drums, nice, Katie. Spending the day off at home. No joke. Yeah, camp season, I guess, with the summers wrapping up. A lot of places, school's in, and a lot of people are probably off enjoying a little bit of time off before, I guess, school and other things kind of kick in. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Yeah, and then those, I think I did the same thing down here. And with that, I think I hit a chord. Yeah, you can hear it. You can hear the click in there. Yeah. So again, it's more of a tonal thing. So in the mix. I really like that. Did a few things. I don't think I did too much in here. Just a couple. I did go through a phase, and I'm still somewhat in that phase, but I'm trying to break myself out of it. Is clip gain is before all of your EQs. Or this inserts. So if you adjust the clip gain, it adjusts what signal is being sent to your inserts, not the actual volume at the end. Volume automation, the actual fader moving, or if you print. So if I were to print these guitars and then clip gain without anything being processed on the inserts on the channel, it would get louder or quieter. But because I'm processing them through gates and compression, all it's doing is sending more guitar to the compressor or more to an EQ. It took me a long time to break the habit of that. Oh man, yeah, being away from home, even if you're not doing anything, but you're off away from home. That's what it's like when we travel. When we travel, it's like, oh yeah, we're on the road, but we're not doing anything. It's an off day, but then you're like, oh, I'm away from family and friends. It can be tough, for sure. Let's see. Yeah, so I've learned to not do that unless what I start doing is just getting the guitars to go all the way through the project, print the sound I want, and then when I go to actually mix and automate, I won't have to worry about EQs and all of that kind of stuff. I can just leave that alone. Still working on that. But these are fun. I think I did the same thing as in the intro. What I liked in this was in the down part of the second verse. Just kind of light, little ringing. But these things. I don't know what I was doing. And those together. And those sometimes are happy accidents because I was just playing two random parts together. And I like those little moments. It's like, da-da-da. Right here. Da, 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 da. And then that all mixed in. Just love the arrangement elements. Again, just cutting one side off in the breakdown, just one side off, allowing the left. Bring it in. I wish summer camp. Yeah. Yeah, we were only up for a week. And man, it kind of flew by for us. Kind of nuts. All right, so here's the breakdown sounds. I love this sound. I love when I was tracking guitars and that type of stuff. I wanted to make sure I got this kind of Linkin Park kind of screech sound whenever I was doing these chicka chicka chickas. Ding. Let's see. I really like that. This, same thing. Did I start too early on that? One of my favorite things is to play that kind of minor chord. It's a major, but it's like oh shoot, I'm bad with music theory. So you've got like the standard scale, but it's like a half. So it's like a 6. It's like a 6 flat, I think. So instead of it being da, 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 da. It's like that little half step. Da, da, da. It lends itself to that third. And then I accentuated it with this guy down here. Pretty straightforward. When making this song, that was one of the big things, is just getting the drum pattern and the guitars down. And then once I knew I had drums and a scratch guitar, it makes it a lot easier to just move on and start building out from there, which would be the rhythms, just a bit of compression for the low end, some kind of toppy stuff, to cutting some 6, 7-ish, adding a little bit of low end, and then cutting the super low lows out to make room for the bass. And then I was using this little booger, and this just kind of helps keep everything squashed together. And that's just on rhythm. So I have the rhythm track. Those are just rhythms. And then on the whole guitar bus, Just cutting out a couple bad frequencies, cutting some bad frequencies, and cutting some bad frequencies. And then adding some saturation and some tonal, some tape shaping, and then limiter again just to catch the spikes. And that's more just for emergencies. Let's see, did I stick bass in the same one? I did. So here's bass group. I should have had this above because I don't know what I was doing. I don't actually have an acoustic in here, so I'm actually going to I'm not going to save this project, but just for the sake of it right now, I'm going to get rid of that because I did not have acoustic. Bass, 1 track, straight down the middle. Gate, making sure it's all clean on those stops. A bump at around 50. Oh no, it's not a bump, it's a shelf. So it's taking 50 and all the way down and lifting it up. But then I'm cutting at around 30. So it's just this kind of sweeping sub low end. I actually have a better plugin for this, like that trick. So I'll do that a little bit. I'll still add some top end and adjust a few things. But then I've got a plug-in that I don't know if I have it on here. Now, our bass is really good, but I have a thing called Sub Filter, and I'll play with that here in a second. But yeah, just showing these off real quick. And then some tonal awesomeness from these plugins. Bass is a weak point for me because I'm so used to just hitting a guitar really hard. And with bass, there's a little bit of finesse. You still pick hard, but it's, I don't know, it's just a different type of picking that has it being very consistent. And at this point, when I was recording this, I was not. So there's probably a lot of compression on this one. A little bit of de-essing for maybe that clicky sound. Again, I don't use it very much now because I use Soothe, and I can narrow Soothe down to those frequency areas, and it's really good for just picking out the really sharp frequencies without completely obliterating that area of frequencies. Taking out some kind of that ooh sound. Again, just adding more and more of that scooped kind of sound to it. I'm not as much of a fan of the scoop sound now. It kind of varies on what I'm listening to. What I found out is a lot more pop punk has that kind of woofy sound. So now I'm just kind of like training myself to deal with it for the sake of getting adjusted to when I need to cut and make scoops or not. Then just adding some R bass. And at 80 hertz makes that kind of low. It sits just above the kick drum's thump at 60, and then it does a consistent kind of low mid, which I guess it's under 100 hertz. It'd probably be more lows. It's not like ultra lows. And then this probably should have been before it, but this is a fun plugin I like to use called MV2, and it's an up and down compressor. So this compresses up. It's an expander. It's pushing anything under that threshold, it's pushing it up. And so if something's happening, it'll duck. And then if things get quiet, it pushes it back up. This is an incredible plugin on bass. Absolutely incredible plugin on bass, because just all those little in-betweens, even up and down picking, if it's not consistent, this can just squash them together. And then it has the high level is a compressor that pulls it down. You really have to play with the output gain because this thing really goes nuts on its output. So you get the squishy sound you want, and then bypass the plugin a couple times and adjust to make sure you're not boosting too much after the plugin, or this stuff. But if you watch the bass, it makes me happy. It's just ebbing and flowing with. And you can kind of tell at certain points when I'm playing really hard or when it's really quiet frequencies. So that's more aggressive picking and higher pitched, so it's compressing the top more. That's compressing the bottom because the signal was cut less. And it just locks the bass in. So I like that. I don't even know if I have anything else. Oh, I do have an all bass. Goodness gracious, what was I doing? Oh, okay, so this is, I think, where the sidechain thing comes into play. So you can see right here at the, what is it, 60 hertz? At 60 hertz is where the EQ, the frequencies are thumping like really good with the kick. And so what I did was I put the C4 in, and on the bass, it's boosting. It's kind of doing two things at once. One, I'm keeping the low frequencies. You can see there's that bump right here. This is constantly higher than the normal level, but I'm bringing the threshold down. And what that does is if I can get it while it's constantly playing to basically not be doing any boost or cutting, whenever it's soft, it will actually, it's like an automated EQ. It'll turn up the low end only whenever it needs to. And what that does is it keeps the bass sub frequencies really consistent. And I like that a lot. And then you just kind of see where I'm ducking out of that all the kicks, so the kicks stay consistent frequency wise. And then a limiter at the end just to make sure it doesn't go haywire. Limiters are fun to just, again, they're like clippers. I treat them sometimes like clippers where they just go in and you just grab the super top transients and clean them up. That very first. So it's minimal. It'll still get a good chunk of it, but it was just that one little blip of that. Maybe I hit the pick too hard, or there's that frequency further up the chain that did something, and that limiter just cuts it. And it just makes me so happy. Because you don't hear it. You don't hear it because the limiter took care of it. Effects. And shout the victory. I just did some, I don't know what I did. Is this any side chaining? No. So these are just a little bit of compression for the effects and a little bit of kind of low build-up control for those. I have an all music bus. Instrumentals. There's no bass in there. Genuinely don't know what this is for. I don't know what that's for. I don't normally do that. I have an all music bus that kind of controls all that stuff. All right, cool. So that is bass. Bass is done. I can close this. Goodbye. This is an 808. You won't hear it unless you have headphones or a sub. I just put those in random spots. I have an ARP that I actually do not know what it sounds like. Cool. That's what it sounds like. I don't remember if I changed it or did anything with it. I probably should have printed this. That way, audio-wise, I could chop it up and do stuff. This, I believe, is an explosion. Again, super low. It just adds this kind of oomph to the very, very beginning, just to get it all to sound bombastic. I like it. I got that a couple more times. Got a reverse cymbal in the down chorus. And a Cell Dweller loop I downloaded years ago. He was putting together on his channel like walkthroughs of his own studio stuff, and he has a lot of analog gear. And so for him, he was making just these huge loops and synth sounds and just craziness. And he would record them while he was tweaking stuff. And then that way he could go back and he would have 15 minutes of just a loop, but he'd be constantly moving parameters. And then that would, he could yield something if he just like moved a knob, and would never be able to get back to that position and that sound ever again, no matter how hard he tried. He did record it and it's there forever. So that's cool. So this is one of those sounds that he made, and then he just gave them out. I'm pretty sure if you look through the YouTube videos, you could probably download these. They're just in the Cell Dweller studio. I don't know what else he called it. Studio production. Beat 5. Episode 5. So if you go to episode 5 on Cell Dweller production, you'll hear him make these. Which raw, they sound like this, though. I did do some adjustment to get it to sound like I did in the breakdown. Then I added, I think a top and bottom EQ to get it to not sound a little bit more bandpass. Compression, a little bit more bandpassing. A C4 to really control that snare. And then some slap delay to give it some stereo width. And then a limiter for really just to not let it move. Which again was a dumb thing I did, because I was turning up thinking that it was getting louder when it wasn't. I should have automated this. So my mistakes. I'm constantly making mistakes and learning from them, and that's one big one. I don't know if this is me playing or if this is a loop or not. I think this is me playing. It's probably me playing. Again, adjusting it up and down. I have a doubler on it, and there was a trick I learned from somebody, I forgot who, in order to get tambourines to sit in a mix well, because it's a very mono percussive instrument. It's hard to, like, if you pan it off to one side, then you're constantly just hearing a shaker on one side. So what he did is he put in this plugin. So it's a stereo. That's why there's two. So this is a mono track, and this trick wouldn't work if it was on a mono track. So I had to drag down the tambourine to a stereo track in order for this trick to work. And so what I did was I put on the doubler. This delays one side a little bit, and I panned the main signal to one side. So the direct signal is being panned hard left or right, which is away from the hi-hat. So the hi-hat is on the left side. If you're playing a drum kit, it's drummer perspective. And so the shaker is on the other side. So if I'm playing the hi-hat, it's kind of like it's over here, away from the hi-hat. So it doesn't, that jingly sound doesn't stack up too much sonically. And then this is panned the opposite side, and then it is delayed slightly, so it gives the stereo feel. But it is still heavy on that side, so you still hear it on the right side, but there's this little splash on the left to give it some kind of positioning. So it's not just chinka 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 over on one side. A little bit of EQ boost to give it some character, and then I have that running into a little plate to add some room. And anything that you add reverb to will dilute its signal. and push it back in the mix. So if it's a very dry signal, then it'll be very up front in the mix and it's hard to kind of place. So I put a little bit of reverb to kind of push it back a little bit. Claps, I think, are just a bunch of samples that I got that sounded kind of cool, and I just threw them all together and did a similar thing with the tambourine, which is just a bit of compression and EQ, a little bit of saturation, and just kind of getting them to sound all together-y. And then I'm probably sending it to all the rooms, the verb, everything. So that way it just really feels like it was in a studio, which now I actually have a reverb that emulates a studio space. So I probably wouldn't do that next time. And then those go throughout. All right, vocals. We're almost done. Vocals, pretty straightforward. What I like about what I have here is these are not printed. This is a comp. So this is exactly what I did to get the take that you hear on the final product. So as you can see, this is how many times I did it. I think I recorded it, here in the house. Pretty sure I did it here in the house by myself. So I did a bunch of takes, and it sounds like this. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing his mercy and his grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, he'll prepare for us a place. And so those were all just the spots that I liked. There are some spots I'm like, ugh, that I would have adjusted now. But again, you live and learn. But those all have like these little micro fades everywhere. And that's one of the cool things about the comping tool in Cubase is when you go to comp, you have these lanes and you actually pick a comping tool. And you select them, and when you cut with the comping tool selected, it creates a micro fade at every single position. So that way, it doesn't glitch and sound weird. And then you just go in and pick the ones you want, and it's all cross-faded and ready to go. I'm pretty sure I kept similar processing on each of these, unless it was a specific thing. Waves tune. This is very consistent, probably too heavily tuned, but I like my voice slightly heavy tuned. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing his mercy and his grace. I have Melodyne now. And so what I would probably do in the future when I track stuff is I'll Melodyne it, which is like a soft, you can get as tight as you need to, but it's very fluid. It allows a lot of the natural character. Like it's just nudging things around, and it keeps everything sounding very organic and like it doesn't just do a bunch of artifacts and weird stuff. It can sound very consistent and what the vocal actually would have sounded like just on key. And then if I want a little bit of that kind of artificial auto-tune-esque sound, then I'll put something like this on, and it won't have to work as hard, but it's just this has a way to get it to sound auto-tune. Like I can get these to sound, I'm afraid I'll have, if I have an undo button, do I have an undo button? I do have an undo button. Okay, so for instance, I could do wondrous love of Jesus. Actually, I am scared to do that because I'm not going to save it, so that's fine. So I can select this, and it's the transition speed. If I pull this all the way down and select where I want it. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing his mercy and his grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, he'll prepare for us a place. So that's how you get that sound. So hopefully didn't ruin everything by doing that. Sing the wondrous love. Come on. I hit undo. Oh, goodness. All right, if it's not doing that, then I can just put these all back to 120. And it should go back to where it was. Wondrous love of Jesus, sing his... And if I didn't want it to sound any more piano-y, I could probably bump this up to 130. And then I'd probably do 20 on that, and then I would pull the ratio down to like 90. And what that does is this is the ratio between untuned and tuned. And if you just let that ratio drop just a hair, you get a little bit more. His mercy and his grace. Just a little more life in it. I just am insecure. Put in the limiter to catch any crazy peaks, because this is, a multi-comp. So if I was moving around during the take, this would keep it from bouncing around too much going into other plugins. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing his mercy and his grace in the mansions bright and blessed. So that just really controls the vocal. Lots of top end and some other cool stuff there. Some compression maybe. Yeah. So a little bit of compression everywhere keeps these vocals in check. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing his mercy and his grace in the mansions bright and blessed. Yeah, so really slam those, and then I like using the L2 at the end, or not L2, the LA2A. Which is a little bit slower release, and it allows just kind of this ebb and flow. So the 1176 is attacking really fast to catch the plosives and to catch the spikes, and then the 2A just kind of levels it all. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing his mercy and his grace in the mansions bright and blessed. He'll prepare for us a place. Pretty cool. That's what I like doing with that. Probably the same setup. With this, on the last chorus, all I did different was I did a little bit of band pass because it's this chorus. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. And with that, what did I do? I might have... that sounds like it's got distortion on it. But I just bypassed. I just did some band pass. Might have gone to a different... Did it go to a different place, though? Lead Vox group. No? Yes. Yeah, so there's some saturation here. So probably when I band passed it, it just gave a different texture, and I was probably hitting the plugins harder. Let's see. When we all see Jesus. Yeah, I was just band passing. Cool, that makes sense. So yeah, the chorus, same thing. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. So what's cool about what I did here with comping is I may have flown the first couple choruses. Oh wait, yeah. So I flew the first choruses, and then what I did was, you can see I kept a couple takes similar, but because I'd already sung it 7 times, I just picked a couple other parts of those, and then I was done. So I just sang it 7 times and then picked the spots that worked for each chorus. So that way I didn't have to go over to the second and re-sing it. This one I re-sang it because I did some other parts. When we all get to heaven. What a day of rejoicing that will be when we all see Jesus. We'll sing and shout the victory. We'll sing and shout the victory. We'll sing and shout the victory. So I really like that. Really like that sound, and that helped a lot. For the sends, I just have a long verb, a delay, and then between the chorus and the verse, I just have different levels being sent to the doubler. So when the chorus hit, the doubler would tick in. Looking back again, I would have just comped 2 left and right dubs, some doubles, and would have mixed those in, and they would have probably sounded better than the doubler, because the doubler is just taking the same exact signal and it's delaying it and maybe pitching it slightly so that there's some variation, but it wouldn't have been that actual double. So I do that more now. I actually create doubles. Or at least I'll comp a second and then put a doubler effect on that. So it's sibilance and expression wise, it's different, but then I'll just have it spread out to the side. So that way it sounds like I sang it 3 times. Yeah, so that's that. Let's go to the harmonies in backgrounds. Think. Oh, it's further back. So yeah, here's the first chorus backgrounds. I'll get to heaven. What a day of rejoicing that will be when we all see Jesus. We'll sing and shout the victory. I don't really know how I picked that particular harmony. Get to heaven. What a day of rejoicing that will be when we all see Jesus. We'll sing and shout the victory. Pretty cool. In Cubase 4, they added this audio alignment panel, and I didn't use it here, but what I do now is I will bounce this to be one whole file. Same thing with these, and then I'll add them as the reference would be this, the lead, the chorus, and then the harmonies I would put them in as the targets. I think that's how that works. Yeah. And then I hit align, and it will actually move and time adjust like sibilance and word diction to whatever the reference is. So in the way that I sang the chorus, the harmonies would timingly go along with it. And there's other plugins that do that, like Vocal Align can do that, but it's an expensive plugin. So I'll get it eventually because I think the algorithm's probably be better than Cubase's. But I'm practicing with Cubase's just to see what to do with it. Then I have a harmony in the second half of the second verse. Soon the pearly gates will open. We shall tread the streets of gold. And I just tune those a little harder just so they don't sound distracting. What did I? Oh yeah, and then at the end here. So this was one of my favorite things. When I was mixing, or when I was creating all of this, one of the cool things is just coming up with vocal layers and patterns and whatnot. And I was just singing along, I think, or I was doing something, and the idea for what these turned into kind of popped in. So this is without them. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be when we all... That's a really high note, so all I did was just squeak that last one out on this one. Really high. And so what I did with these is this, and these sound really cool. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all by themselves. When we all get to heaven, rejoicing that will be. Super heavily tuned, but it's something so not something you heard throughout the song that it just adds this whole different character just for that last chorus. I love that. And then I knew in the down chorus I wanted gang vocals, but I couldn't quite get everybody to hang out together long enough to create a gang vocal. So I was racking my brain trying to figure out a way to do this. And I was like, well, what if I use like a vinyl record or like an old sound, kind of, one of those sort of like throwback samples. I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. So what I did was I scoured YouTube, scoured the internet, and I found a video of a Church of Christ service singing When We All Get to Heaven. And they were singing the more traditional style, so I had to do some cuts and some moving to get it to sync up to actual straight 4/4. But that sounds like this. That just is so cool. It's one of the first times using a sample type thing. This is without any processing. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. So I added Magneto, which was the only tape thing I had at the time. I think it was just adding some kind of warble, band passing it with some EQ. And then compression and de-essing. And then the mix. And what was cool and it was kind of inspiring is I knew I wanted to have something bandpassed and that kind of, telephone effect moment. And so having that sample lead into my sound for, I kind of wanted them to sound similar to each other. So that was part of it too, is in the mixing process when I was trying to be creative in the transition. I was like, well, that would sound cool to make it almost sound like I was singing on, like, with them. So I thought that was kind of cool. I think we went over the drum bus, the guitar bus, bass bus, bus. Again, on the here, way too much stuff, but a lot of this is just compressing and bad frequencies. This was all, I could have done all of this with one plugin, which is Soothe 2. Soothe 2 is just absolutely amazing, and it does all this kind of stuff. And then some tape. This was for backgrounds. So backgrounds are that. Same thing here. Almost identical. I used a lot of the same, to keep everything in the same ballpark sonically, I used a lot of the same samples not samples, the same processing, EQs and compression at the right spots. So that way the vocals kind of all flow together. And they're all stuck in here. And I don't think I did too much automation except for on the guitars for this little lick. I just did a slight boost. This is the right way to do it. That's what you're supposed to do with automation. And so I actually just boosted that little lick and came back down. I don't think I did it for the bass, but I just did it. I probably should have done it for the all instruments, because the all instruments, it's the other stuff. In V2, same thing, just doing a lot of the lower dynamics, just kind of boosting those up for the vocals, limiting again just the kind of the toppy stuff. And those almost rarely ever hit. And then I wouldn't have used this in this instance because it's not stereo. So again, right out of the gate, it's monoing. By mono, it's dual stereo, so it's compressing consistently on the left and right, which means if the snare drum, if the floor tom, which is panned to the right, hits, it's going to duck the left as well. And so it all just kind of ducks together. So I don't normally use this that early in the chain. I try to use independent left and right compressors, which the 2511, the API 2500 and the 33609 are independent. Like dual mono is what they call that back in the day, because you just have a mono compressor for the left and a mono compressor for the right, and it'd be consistent, but like if the guitar wasn't playing too hard on one side or the other, it would kind of just, the inconsistency adds a little width. One thing I did skip over, and I'll go back to it, is this little guy right here. So that is my first big scream. And it is not a good one. Let me hear it without it, do you think? Part of that too is, like, I can get, if you're yelling at somebody across the room, or like if they're way far away and you yell and you try to get their attention, there's a way that your body can do that without really hurting yourself too bad, but it has a particular tone. But as soon as you try to do that into a microphone, like, my face shrivels up, like everything just stops working. So that kind of sound just doesn't sound good. I can do better now, learning kind of how to scream. I did a little bit at the Blessed Assurance, but even then it was still kind of wonky. This, I just added a little bit of everything, and then this plugin is gone, but it was called Camel Crusher, and it doesn't work anymore. But it's the body of the distortion, which I have Decapitator and a few other distortion plugins. And with this, I just threw a ton of delay at it to get it to have a tail. And then in the mix, fun times. So yeah, that's all the vocals. That's everything there. So I could close up the claps and miscellaneous. Yes. Yeah. That's all that was there. And all the vocals. And then I just did some processing for those. My long verb is R verb. A lot of Waves plugins back here. Room verb, same thing, just shorter. Delays were the H delay. H delay is good. Doubler, yeah, and just that adds that stereo-ness. I don't know what this was used on, though. I think I had multiple doublers. I should have named these better, but this is the vocal doubler, I think. Yeah. And it's also being saturated. So I did EQ and saturation on the doubler. So when I brought in the doubler, it added some width and crunch. Cool. Just making sure everything's still working. Hopefully it's all still working. H delay on something. Some of these I didn't. I was just dropping. Like I would just make new effects for everything, and that probably wasn't the best idea because then I just forget what each one of them's actually doing. Heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be when we all I don't know why that was just a doubler for that. See, that's not right. I should have had a doubler and just sent those in their own way. Some guitar verb to add some depth for those guys. I believe this is... Man, I must have just been doing weird stuff with those. Oh, wait, no. The guitar 5 is the... Oh, you know what? Just kidding. This is something cool. I didn't think about this. So guitar 5 verb is panned to the right. If I go to guitar 5 right here, which it's not guitar 5 for some reason. Nope, it is. Where is guitar? Guitar 5 verb. Yeah. Guitar 5 is panned to the left. So if I play the guitar together, you'll hear the reverb in the right side and the guitar clean and dry on the left side. And I did the opposite with the other guitar. So guitar 4, which I probably had these named weird, would be the other side. So now you got the left guitar dry, left guitar verb in the right, and then I reversed it on the other side. Which is, it's basically stereo, but like it's more of an illusion in the stereo field because I've got it panned over here, but you're hearing it still like subconsciously through the reverb over here. And then on the other side, it's the same thing. So it's kind of this kind of bowl of stereo-ness. So that's what that was. Cool. All right. Last hoopla here. We're on the home stretch. We've got some compression, EQ, and limiting. So let me not do that because that was a really dumb thing to do. Stop. Is it control or? No, stop it. No, stop it. Or was it? No. No. I swear I thought I hit the right button, but I'm not hitting the right button. Did I not hit? Ugh. What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? No. Ah, I was hitting the wrong. I'm still working on stuff. Whew, that was dumb. All right, so if I hit the E, if I have a lot of these windows open up and I hit shift on the E, shift click E, they'll disappear. So I got this guy. Again, he's running the master deck, the desk. It's right there. Everything pumping through it sounds like this. When we all get to heaven, what a day. Then I got an SSL doing some lovely compression as well. So another thing I think I did with I can close this up. So the all music instrumental stuff, that is being routed to all music. All music is being routed to stereo out, but the vocals are just going to stereo out. So that was one of the things is now if I click on all music and hit play, it shouldn't because they're going to it, but I had it set up where if you click all music, it wouldn't, and it would just sound like this. So this is just what the all music bus is hearing. It's just the effects and the mix without the main vocals. So that way, any compression done here is not affecting the main, here. So all this compression is just for the drums and guitars and everything else. And this compression is for the whole mix. Ducking a little 3, not pulling any 5 out there. Little bump at 50, cutting at 27 hertz. Just some minimal movements there. So I'm cutting up to 27 hertz, but here I'm doing 30, and I'm just boosting a little bit at 30 and 12, just to add a little bit of top and bottom. Again, it's just these little movements kind of throughout. And then this guy's at the very end, probably doing too much. 280. Or you might be not doing almost anything. This is adding a lot of color. This unit, if you don't compress with it, just the circuit alone sounds really cool. So I put it on here just to add whatever color it was adding to the whole mix. And then a limiter at the end, just to make sure nothing clips. So if I wanted volume before I went to mastering, if I can control it here, so this is what it would look like. I'd put in standard clip. I'd leave this all the way up, and then I'd hit standard clip play. I'd go to the loudest. I'd go to the loudest part of the song, and I just boost this. But it'll never go above 0 because I'm clipping the plugin. So it's gonna be loud, but that's like slamming out front. So that's how you get tons of volume without it clipping or doing anything weird, against your limiter. So, but for the most part, for sampling and for all of the production stuff, I usually save that for the mastering phase. So a lot of times I'll use that to just bump it up, depending on where my mix is hitting. Maybe a little bit of limiting, but most of the time it's just when I'm in the process of getting ready to master it, and I use Ozone to master and do extra imaging and a little bit of saturation and things. Yeah, that's the whole kit and caboodle right there. It is an absolute blast to make music. I'm still learning so much, but this process is just too much fun. So, oh man, I gotta get some of this fixed. OBS is doing some weird stuff every now and again, but it was a long stream. But this is just a breakdown. I'm getting used to it. Thank you all so much for hanging out. And if this is something you enjoy, make sure you like the video. If you want to subscribe, that would just give you a notification or just have you connected to the stream or to the channel. So that way you'll know if I upload a video or go streaming. But yeah, no, this is too much fun. So Yeah, I'll have, not right now, but I will add some links in the description to Instagram and my music on Spotify and Apple Music and um, Amazon Music and all that stuff. And I will soon be in the works of creating some more music. I've just kind of been in my own little head trying to figure out kind of what I want to do next, what songs I want to mess with. And so for me, it's just been kind of figuring that out. And I might do some demo stuff on here just to kind of see, get some feedback in real time, what people are liking and stuff. But I would say again, thank you all so much for hanging out. And yeah, this is too much fun. I've waited a really long time to do stuff like this, and it's an absolute honor. So thank you all again so much, and I will see you all. Hopefully, let me see if I can get this. I will see you all next time. Not sure when, but just keep an eye on the channel. I might post again on social media to let you all know when I'm going live. I might not stream tomorrow because we might be leaving Thursday for Ohio. And if we do that, then the day before is kind of a crazy day of making sure we got everything situated for the trip. So, but yeah, if you like this, again, hit like, subscribe if you want to, and leave some comments on if you saw anything. If there was something I didn't cover or you wanted more information on, by all means, let me know, and I can do another video or another live stream and do kind of a Q&A walkthrough of whatever people would enjoy seeing. So on that note, y'all have a good evening. I'm going to go eat some food. See y'all later.